Hey, it's Ayla, and you are listening to Not That Kind of CEO. Today, I'm just gonna dive right in. Today, I'm gonna give you 5 top tips. I think they're top tips to getting that work-life balance that you crave so much. First of all, I warned you, I'm gonna dive right in. First of all, you need to get clear on what makes you happy. Adulting is hard. Adulting is heavy. Everything you do in your life is heavy. Have the responsibility over your kids, making them into wonderful humans. That's heavy. You need to pay the bills. You need to keep the house in somewhat of a tidy state in order to make sure that no one gets sick. We're talking low bar here, but it's a responsibility. Everything in your adult life is a responsibility. And so in order to have a balance, this is what a balance is. I'm moving my hands up and down in a balancey kind of way if you're listening to this and not watching. So if your adult life is heavy, you need to be heavy on the fun as well. Do stuff that makes you happy. And in order for you to do that, you need to get clear on what actually makes you happy. And this is a tiny challenge, but I challenge you to think about what's fun for you. What do you do for fun? That's just for fun. It's not in any way a necessity or useful, useful fun. No, actual, just plain old fun, just for you. How many things can you name? And how many things that you can name are you actually still doing in your life? Because I find myself often naming things that I loved to do when I was a teenager. I'm not a teenager anymore. I probably would still love to do those things, but do I ever do them? No, not at all. So get clear on what gives you fun and actually start doing those things. Tip number 1. Tip number 2 is outsource the hell out of stuff that's not in your zone of genius. And if you are unsure what's the zone of genius, I created a podcast about that a while ago. I'll link it up in the show notes so you can go listen to that one, because I think it's vital to know what's in your zone of genius. There are 4 zones. There's your zone of incompetence, speaks for itself, zone of competence, zone of excellence, and zone of genius. And the top 2, is where it usually goes wrong with people, because they're working in their zone of excellence, thinking I'm really excellent at this. People come to me for this, but it's not their zone of genius. And when it's not in your zone of genius, eventually it will burn you out. Because when you work in your zone of genius, it's going to give you energy. You're super fast at it as a plus point as well. So you'll get more work done in less time, which is always great. You want to outsource this to someone whose zone of genius actually covers the tasks that you're outsourcing, because they're going to be much faster at it than you were going to do it when you were doing something in your zone of competence or excellence, They're going to be much faster. Plus, it's going to stop you, or at least diminish a lot, your procrastination. Because let's face it, if there's a task on your horizon that's not bringing you joy, that you dread doing because you know it's going to take a long time, and it's just, and you're not looking forward to it, you're going to find ways to procrastinate on that task. So in order for you to keep your work-life balance, you got to try to keep the work fun and giving you energy. And that means outsourcing stuff that's not in your zone of genius. The third tip that I have for you is to define your non-negotiables, plan them into your schedule, and then keep to them as well. That's the vital part. You need to keep to them. Because it's so easy to put in your calendar that you're going to work out today, but when push comes to shove, you're actually still working on something else. And you see the pop-up coming in your calendar, like, oh, I need to work out in half an hour. And you're like, oh, but if I could just finish this task, then etc., etc. And before you know it, the time that you planned for your workout is gonzo and you didn't do it. And another one of your non-negotiables that apparently was negotiable went out of the window. So you need to define your non-negotiables. They are based on the values that you have for your life, for yourself. And when you live out of alignment with the values that you have, it's going to create stress. Very easily put, if living in a spotlessly clean and tidy house is one of your values, like cleanliness is your value, and you are constantly walking around in a house that is completely disorganized, there's messes everywhere, it's dirty, it's going to cause friction within you. Because every time you pass something that's untidy, you're going to note it in your head and you're just going to go, ugh, I wish it was cleaner in here. So eventually what it's going to result into is that you're uncomfortable in your own skin because you're not living up to your own values. If this is you, you want to plan an hour to clean your house every day. Like if this literal example is you. And that is how you should look at all your values. Imagine that getting healthy is one of your values, like a good health to grow old healthily is high up your value list. Then instead of planning in your workouts and not keeping to them, imagine if you had an appointment at a doctor and the doctor said to you, you know what, if you're gonna want to grow old in a healthy way, you need to start working out 4 times a week starting now. If you don't do this, you'll die. Eventually we'll all die, but still, you know what I mean. The doctor is saying you to this. Imagine if the doctor actually said that. Would you be working out? Would you rearrange your entire schedule around those workouts 4 times a week? Yeah, you would, because you want to live. So do this with all your values. Are vacations with your family on the list? Fine. Plan them in and plan your work around those vacations. Make sure that you create time in your business where you plan to be away so that when the time comes, when you actually take that vacation, you don't need to take your laptop with you because, you already scheduled it. Well done. Non-negotiables planned. Work-life balance maintained. The 4th tip that I have for you to create a work-life balance is to build a structure into your business. This morning I heard someone say, business should be boring. And I was like, yes, that makes sense. And I'm going to unpack that in a whole nother episode because it deserves a platform on its own because it's such an important statement. Business should be boring. Building a structure into your business means that you'll have to take less decisions. And less decisions, as we all know, like moms, the decision fatigue is real. It's not some fashion word that someone came up with. It's actually a real thing. It's scientifically proven that you're exhausted at the end of the day because you're making a million micro decisions throughout the day. And the more kids you have, in the lower ages, the more those decisions add up. So when you add a structure into your business, very often I get the complaints from my clients that they say, a structure is boring. I feel like a structure is taking away my freedom. What if you wouldn't see a structure as something that's keeping you down, but what if you would look at a structure in your business as a solid floor where you could then dance on, if that's your freedom. If your floor is not ready, you're not going to be able to dance because you're the floor can cave in at any moment. But if your floor is a solid structure, you're going to feel more free in the end. So I'm talking about repeatable weeks, quarterly tasks that come back every quarter. You got that from the word quarterly tasks. Sorry. The things I work according to my cycle, my hormonal cycle. I work according to season. I work according to quarters. I work according to the school rhythm that my kids have. I have theme days in my business where I do this, I do that on specific days. I don't have my coaching calls available on every day of the week. There are 2 dedicated days that I have my coaching days. And, if you're not available on those days, you need to find another coach, because it's my non-negotiable, that the other days I have other stuff planned. So that's it. And that way, I don't actually need to think about this. Whenever a coaching client comes into my world and they want to get coached by me, it's very simple. I send them the scheduling link. They can pick their hours in my 2 days designated for coaching. And I don't have to plan my week around a moment that they pick that's handy for them, but that's actually costing me a lot of energy. So yeah, build a structure for your business with repeating things and diminish the decision fatigue, and your work-life balance will get better. Because less decision fatigue here is going to give you more energy there on the other side of the balance. And that's just a beautiful thing to have. 5th tip, last one as well, to improve your work-life balance is getting hyper clear about your finances. And this is a topic I don't very often hear related to having a good work-life balance. But when you get hyper clear on your finances, and I'm talking detail, I might get into it in another episode as well. If that's something you're interested in, let me know, then I can do it. But for example, when you know your hourly rate, you know when to hire help. It's very simple math, because if you are very slow, your hourly rate is $100 an hour, and you're doing something also that's like out of your zone of genius. So a small task is going to take you 3 hours. It would have been a lot cheaper to hire someone for $90 an hour that's going to do it in 1 hour, even for 100, like the same. But when you know your hourly rate, you can calculate with that and decide what you're going to outsource to whom and how that's saving you money in the end. And as well, when you get hyper clear on your finances, you are also going to get hyper clear on the revenue goals that you set for yourself. And when you have those clear, it's so much easier to focus on revenue generating activities instead of getting pulled away by shiny objects into tasks that are actually not making you money at all, or that, what we just talked about, should be outsourced in the first place. So when you have that revenue goal super clear, it's basically the same as what I always preach. Like, if you have a vision, you're gonna act according to your vision. The same goes for a financial goal. When you have a financial goal, you're gonna act according to that financial goal. So getting hyper clear on your finances is going to help you with that balance, because it's going to be easier to say no to things that aren't getting you to that goal. It's going to be easier to say no to tasks that aren't up to your hourly rate and say, no, I'm going to outsource that. And in the end, that is going to create time, which then counts towards your work-life balance. If I'm going to say that one more time, I'm going to need a glass of water. So let's keep it to that for today. The 5 tips that I promised you. If your work-life balance is something that you're struggling with, but you don't know where the fuck to start, I made something for you. It's called Where the Fuck Should I Even Start? To no surprise. And there are a few short exercises in there. I think it's going to take you 20 minutes tops. And it's going to give you an immediate insight into where your life is out of balance, what you could drop, what you could ask help on, what they say, automate, delegate, and eliminate. It's going to give you an insight in where in your life the unbalance is, and it's going to help you figure out where the fuck you should start to get that balance that you're craving. So you'll find the description how to get that in the show notes of this podcast. And thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.